Okay, we'll go ahead and begin. I'd like to welcome everyone to this webinar on what's new in FieldSeeker GIS. Today we'll be focusing on what's new in the web application, the Office application. We'll have a separate webinar in a few weeks on what's new in the iOS application. So thank you for joining us. We'll run about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. The webinar is being recorded so that if there are others in your organization that would like to see some of the new features, then they'll have a chance to look at that later. We'll talk through several of the new features in FieldSeeker Web, and they're in no particular order. We're going to start with one that a lot of people have asked about, which is product inventory. And on-truck inventory can always be a challenge. If you've ever had to manage paper product tickets for keeping track of what you've checked out from warehouses and reconciling all of that at the end of the week or end of the month, you know that that can be a challenge. So FieldSeeker now supports on-truck inventory. You can see what is on each vehicle currently. The technicians in the field on the mobile application can record transfers and reconcile what they weigh and measure. That can also be entered here on the web application by supervisors. So it's easy to see where the inventory is, and then as information gets, or as treatments get done in the field, that inventory is automatically decremented. This inventory functionality will tie in and integrate with back-end systems, ERP systems, other inventory systems. So many people already have systems for managing, ordering, receiving, costing, and all of that. It's just the rolling stock that is the challenge. So this is a big help for keeping track of that. Now, I'm going to show just an example on the reconcile, for example. So I've got one of these trucks selected, and this is similar to what a field tech would see as well. When they go into reconcile, they can put in what they actually have on their vehicle as compared to what the system says that they have. If there's no change, they don't have to make any change. And if they make a measurement and it's different, then it'll automatically make the adjustment. They can also put in notes to explain what the discrepancy is, if there's some kind of explanation of why that difference exists. And then, of course, this is updated for everyone system-wide. So that is on-truck inventory. Okay, the next feature we'll talk a little bit about is the use of picture attachments. So any field location can have pictures associated with it. Let me just pick a different base map here. And as I say, of course, pictures worth 1,000 words. So in the field or in the office, attachments can be added for any of the locations. So sometimes comments and other things are not super helpful. If you wanted to take a picture of where the cistern was underneath the house, then that picture attachment would be visible to anyone on the mobile or the web. Picture attachments are now supported for all locations, point line and polygon locations, as well as for field inspections and for service requests. This is particularly helpful for a technician that might be filling in for another tech. Someone's out sick or gone on vacation. Some of those kind of special notes about particular sites can be captured with pictures. Okay. The next feature we want to talk about is time-enabled map layers. Now, time-enabled map layers are useful for information like service requests, for example, which can show up on the map as a layer, but service requests for the whole season or for multiple seasons can pretty much inundate the map. Other layers that are time-enabled in FieldSeeker include landing counts and trap results, and those kind of information typically are updated every single day or every single week, so there could be lots and lots of records. In addition, things like aerial spraying and truck spraying, those also are time-enabled. Usually if you're looking at this information for the purposes of decision-making, only the most recent information is relevant. Using the time-enabled controls, I can turn on the time slider here, and I can have it show me day by day or week by week or month by month. And then as I click through, I can see patterns in the data, or I can just use this to see the most recent information only. And so this is a great tool for kind of visualizing otherwise tabular data. It's also a great tool for kind of lending credence to some of the insights that you probably already have about what's going on in your area. Being able to confirm suspicions about patterns or what's going on around a hotspot. And with the information that's time-enabled, like I said, that does include data like the landing counts and trap results. That's another feature of this latest version, is being able to see visually that information on the screen. So we see here some of the recent landing count information, and it's visually represented by the size. We can also turn on trap results. And so being able to get that lab surveillance information available to everyone in the organization, from other supervisors to technicians in the field, is very useful. Being able to see what the actual counts were, what species are being found. That kind of information typically might show up on a report or a spreadsheet. Getting that information shared with everybody in a timely fashion can always be a challenge. So being able to do that through the map is incredibly useful. Along those same lines, both for a supervisor here in the office, and then as you'll also see if you come to the other webinar on the mobile application, being able to see where aerial treatments happened or where truck treatments happened. That can help with QA as well as with answering questions from people in the public. So maybe you're just out, someone's out responding to a service request, being able to look at the map and tell them what activities have been done in the area lately, including aerial treatments. There was an aerial treatment done recently, and also being able to see if there were any areas that might have been missed by that aerial treatment. So, some of the first intentions with any of these data entry systems is just to capture all the data that's being created, all the operational data, so that your reports are accurate and all of that. But then after that's being done, it's really how do we get the data back out and make it useful for decision making and communicating with the public. So a lot of effort's been put into doing that with the latest version of FieldSeeker. This time-enabled data is just a feature of ArcGIS, and so we're just leveraging one of the ArcGIS capabilities. And like I said, it does work both on the application and on the mobile application as well. Okay, so next let's talk about prescription spraying and kind of a field to aerial workflow. This is the proposed treatment areas functionality in the new version of FieldSeeker. I'm going to make sure the proposed treatment areas layer is turned on here. What it allows people to do while they're in the field is, based on what they're finding with site inspections and maybe trapping and other things, if they're not able to do a ground treatment that will address the problem, then they can select areas or sketch in areas where treatment needs to happen, either coming back later with additional equipment, or aerial treatment, or even treatment by ULV truck. So let me turn off the point locations real quick here. And I'll get zoomed in a little bit. So there are a few of these proposed treatment areas kind of showing on the map here. And the field personnel or supervisors can draw additional ones in. The kind of information that's shown when a proposed treatment area is drawn in is basically the name of the area, who drew it in, and then what method it needs to be treated with, and a priority and a due date. So if we would like to have that done by tomorrow, and all of this information will be reviewed by a supervisor. Now, the tools for reviewing those proposed treatment areas allow a supervisor to look through that information in a list and also view that information on the map. So I'm going to sort this by zone and then by priority. And so maybe I'm just concerned with what's in zone 8 here. I can highlight those and zoom to that on the map and review the information about those. So this one says it's critical. This one says it's high priority. I can kind of review all that information as the supervisor, decide what the mission needs to be, and if we're going to have an aircraft take care of these areas, then I can actually select those proposed treatment areas and export that out to a shapefile that can go into the aerial guidance systems. So systems like AgNav and even SkyTracker will take in shapefiles for spray blocks. And so whether you're flying aircraft in your own operation or whether you contract that out, there are now tools for you to do the planning, do the reviewing, and then send that information to those other crews so that they're not guessing about where they need to put product. So the concept there of a prescription spray, maybe you have a very large area that could be treated, but only part of it really needs to be treated. You can sketch that in and save time and money on product. The other thing that can be done right from here too, maybe it doesn't get flown and treated aerially. Maybe another crew goes out and treats it with a truck or some other piece of equipment. A proposed treatment area can just be selected here, and then the treatment information can just be entered for it, or it can be marked as completed. So they're very flexible tools for reviewing that information, and once something is marked as completed or a treatment's done on it, then it will disappear from this list. So this is basically just an action list at any given moment. The nice thing for operations that do a lot of aerial treatment, it's important to react quickly to conditions in the field. And so, having to wait for data to come in and be synchronized and be entered and reports printed and meetings had you can miss the window of being able to react. So in this case, everything that's entered in the field is available immediately. It can be reviewed by supervisors and pilots before the field crews even come in from the field. So they can be doing work in the morning. Mission planning could take place that very day, and then crews sent out to take care of the treatments. So that's the proposed treatment areas and prescription spraying. Kind of to close the loop on that, information from systems like AgNav and SkyTracker can be processed automatically and brought into FieldSeeker, and that's what you were seeing here earlier with some of these aerial treatment swaths. That's data that's coming out of one of those systems. So even if a contractor is recording the data in some other system, that can be processed into FieldSeeker, so it's all visible with the rest of your information. Okay. So the next feature we want to talk about is using a service request entry form on a public website. And just as an example, I'm going to use the one from Florida Keys. I have one question for all of you, real simple poll, and I'll just have you answer on this, yes or no. Does your organization currently have a service request form on your public website? Some do and some don't, for various reasons. Okay, it's looking like almost everybody's voted, and 63% say yes and 38% say no. Of course, our attendees include several people from Electronic Data Solutions, so we don't have a service request form on our website. I think most of you that are mosquito districts probably do have. So that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll so you can keep seeing my screen. So nothing too, revolutionary about the idea of a service request form on a website. But for a lot of you, that probably means that that information that gets entered there generates an email or some other thing to someone in your organization who has to review it, and then probably manually enter it into your system or print something out and hand it to people. What we're seeing here is an example of a GeoForm, which is a ArcGIS thing. Same kind of information entry for, name and address, phone number, and the type of request. But then you can also just have it select a location on the map. So you can type something in, or if you're doing this from a mobile device, it will automatically use your location if you want it to do that. And then the user is able to specify, where the request really is. Sometimes typing in an address just puts it out on the street, but the problem might be back here, back where the water's at. And then they can submit that request, and that will come in directly into FieldSeeker as an actual service request. So someone still might want to review it, make sure it's legitimate, assign it to somebody, but the request goes into the system automatically without having to retype that information into the system or print out a hard copy. So over here in FieldSeeker, under Search Service Requests, someone could come in and take a look at the requests that came in just these past couple of days. And that would include ones that came from the website. Those would come in as the status might be unverified. So there's one that came in from the website, and they could then assign that to somebody. The system can also automatically assign to a field tech based on the zone. So this is just a nice example of using the ArcGIS platform This GeoForm is a configurable app that comes with ArcGIS Online, and I think most of you, well, everybody on the call here has some kind of ArcGIS desktop or server, and ArcGIS Online you have entitlement to a certain number of users with those licenses. So some of you may already be using that. You can configure this GeoForm, and as you saw, it's just embedded as a link on the public website. Okay, we've got a couple others to talk about, and then we'll open it up for questions. Just want to talk about two others. One is restricted areas. So let me go in and turn on this layer. I don't know how many of you have used or have seen map books or printouts or spreadsheets of addresses with special instructions. Maybe it's gate codes, maybe it's don't spray, maybe it's contact the owner first. FieldSeeker now has the capability of letting you create those restricted areas. And I'm just going to bring up I'll just bring up one of these existing ones. So you can track when the last contact was made with this person, as well as what type of a restriction it is. Maybe it's a bad dog, maybe it's a bad owner, and also whether it's do not enter or do not spray. Anything that's put in this technician warning will pop up automatically on the screen for the field techs when they're within a proximity of that location. So rather than have to rely on paper printout that people are supposed to look at, it can just show up here on their map, and then they'll get a warning also on the mobile device. So people are using this in different ways. One might just be the do not sprays for truck spraying. Others might be for kind of warnings to the technician, special instructions, anything that should be brought to their attention, and that can be particularly useful again if someone's filling in for somebody. All those things that the regular tech might know about these locations, someone else may not know that. Okay, and then kind of the last one that I'll mention for today is user-defined fields. So I'm just going to turn on the point locations again here. And so location information includes lots of stuff, but there might be additional information that you want to keep track of that isn't on this page. And so we do have user-defined fields that can be set up for locations. So under configuration, I can go into user-defined fields, and let's say for point locations, I want to make this be permission to enter. I'm just going to call it entry permission. And I'm going to make that visible. I could make it required. I could use a pick list. And maybe for the second one, should have saved that, I guess. Okay. So once that's set up, then whenever I go into information for a location or create a new one, then it will pop up and I'll have that additional field. So let me just bring one up here real quick. So that applies on point, line, and polygon locations. Also, it applies on time card entries, which is kind of a miscellaneous activities and time entry. So let's see. When I create a new one or bring up an existing one, I now have an entry there for entry permission, and as you can see, it's required. So that's a nice thing for, almost all of the information that everyone enters is pretty similar, but there may be something specific about what you have to keep track of in your district, and so just try to account for that. So that's all I was going to cover right now. I do have a couple of additional polls, but before I ask those, let me open it up to any questions from the audience. You can either type the questions in and put them in the chat, or I will turn the sound on so that you can ask questions if you have them. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any questions coming in on the chat. If you want to ask a question, just do the little hand raise thing so that I can unmute you. In the meantime, I will ask a couple of the additional poll questions. So one is just about the devices that you currently are using in the field. Just what you're currently using, if it's, this is always interesting to see what people are using and want to use. So if you take just a second and answer that, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's looking like a pretty even split between Windows and Windows Mobile and iOS and Android. More people seem to be using Windows tablets these days, and then a few of you are using the iPhones and iPads. Okay, looks like a pretty good percentage also using Android as well. So. Okay, and a similar question, but it's what do you plan to use in the future? So maybe you're stuck using what you've got right now. What would you like to use if you had the choice for moving forward? Okay, interesting. So far, about 80% of you voted. The vast majority, or the largest percentage, is Windows tablets. And so that is interesting because that's making a resurgence. Windows tablets are much more affordable than they used to be. Windows 10 coming out, touchscreen devices, a lot of choices out there for hardware, including low cost as well as more rugged, and the cost keeps coming down. So, and then quite a few on iOS, a few Android. There's a couple at least that were other, and if you're one of those ones, if you don't mind just putting in the chat what the other would be, that would be helpful. Okay, one additional simple poll. Are you interested in using the GeoForm for capturing service requests? And if so, we can point you in the right direction with ArcGIS Online or help you set it up. if you're already somewhat familiar with ArcGIS Online, we can probably just point you in the right direction. If not, we can do a little more hands-on. So yeah, quite a few of you are interested in that, so that's cool. Just as a follow-up on that, then if you are interested, feel free to send me an email. Send us an email. Contact us after this webinar. Okay, and then last question for you, and then we'll go back and see if there's more questions from the audience. Of those new features we talked about, what are some of the ones that you're most interested in or that would be most useful in your operation? And this one should let you do multiple selections if you want. So. Okay, there are a couple questions as you're finishing voting on that poll from the audience. One is, does FieldSeeker run on Windows tablets? Currently, FieldSeeker runs on iPads or iPhones and on Windows mobile devices. Our product roadmap doesn't include running on Windows tablets in the future, though. There's no specific timeline on when we'll have that available, but we did just come out with the iOS this spring, and so we're kind of in the first year of having that available. But that is on the product roadmap. I think Windows tablets is always a solid choice. So, one other question is, are there any plans for a catch basin screen to quickly enter catch basin treatments? Yeah, that's something that we have developed before on the Sentinel side. That currently isn't available in the FieldSeeker on the iPads, but I know that some of you enter thousands and thousands of catch basins, so that also is one of those on the drawing board kind of things. So, okay, let's see if there are any other questions here. We'll close that poll. All right, just so on the things that you're interested in, looks like the time-enabled map layers could be pretty useful, and then restricted areas also is pretty useful. Okay. All right, I will go ahead and unmute everybody real quickly. If you have any additional comments or questions, please let us know. And otherwise, we appreciate you attending. Like I said, this will be available as a recorded webinar after the fact. So, okay. Well, thank you again for attending, and please keep an eye on your email for upcoming webinar topics and sign up for any that you're interested in. Appreciate your time today. Thanks.